Begin today the Gemara on Daf Chof Aleph Amud Beis, 8 lines up from the bottom of the Amud. Amalei Ule L'Rav Nachman. So this Gemara is going on to the Mishnah right over here in the Amud Beis, the first line of Amud Beis, where the Mishnah brings an example that a person can be plowing in his field and he's chayiv 8 times Malkus, 8 lavim for one act of plowing. The Mishnah said because he plowed with a shayr and a chamayr, and they're mukdoshin, and it's klein, and it's Shmita, and it's Yom Tif, and he's a Kayin, and it's a Nazir, and it's an Abesa Kvaris. Okay, so here the Gemara is going to focus on the detail of Yom Tif. That one that does a malacha on Yom Tif, unlike Shabbos one does a malacha Yechayiv Misa, but on Yom Tif, the Chiyuv is Malkus, and that was one of the cases here in the Mishnah. Okay, so in connection to this, the Gemara has a question. Amalei Ol Rav Nachman, so all this says to Rav Nachman, V'lilki nami mishum zeireya b'Yom Tif. He should get 2 Malkusim for Yom Tif. One Malkus, which is obvious, the Mishnah is saying that he did the Malacha of Chrisha, plowing on Yom Tif. Okay, so that's 1 Malkus. But based on what the Gemara said here before, when he's plowing, what happens is there are already seeds in the field, and by plowing, he's turning over the earth, and the earth covers those seeds. And the Gemara before brought that Rabbi Yochanan explained that the pshat in the Mishnah is that when you plow and you cover the seeds, the very fact that you cover the seeds, besides plowing, softening the earth, it's also considered to be planting, zereya. If so, over here, by this one act, he's doing 2 things, charisha and the malacha of zriya on Yom Tov, so she be chayav twice for Yom Tov. Amalei, so Rav Nachman answered, you're right, Tana v'shir. The Mishnah says these 8 malkusim, but then it leaves over 1. There's a 9th malkus. Amalei, so all it says, how could you answer this? Tana ketani shmaina, the Tana says 8 malkus, v'at amra Tana v'shir. And you say that the Tana left over, and he means really 9, but even though he said 8, he's giving the number 8. How can you say that the Tana leaves over the 9th? So the Gemara answers, Omar Rove or Omar Rabbe, that over here, for Yom Tif, you cannot be chayiv 2 malkusim just for Yom Tif itself, for the 2 malachas of Chrisha and Zriya, because yesh chiluk malachas b'Shabbos. This idea that if you do 2 malachas, you chayiv twice, that only applies on Shabbos. But regarding Yom Tif, there's no such thing. If a person repeats the chil Yom Tif with 1 hasra on the Yom Tif, then he's only going to be chayiv once. Shabbos, the Ivan here brings the source. We learned many times that you learn it out from the fact that the Torah writes by Shabbos, Hav'ore l'chalek yotzes, the Torah singles out the malacha of lighting a fire. From that you learn out that in Shabbos, every malacha you chayiv separately. So if a person, behelem echad, and 1 lapse of awareness, is Mechal Shabbos, all the malachas will be chayiv 39 chatois. But on Yom Tif, it doesn't work that way. That pasuk is only by Shabbos. So therefore, Yom Tif, even if you do over here, the 2 malachas, Charisha and Zriya, is chayiv only once. Amalei, so to this answer, he said, Ula apparently said, Adot tehei, yeah, this could be correct. That on Yom Tif, there's no chiluk malachas and you only chayiv once. The Gemara asks on this, Eisvei Abaya asks, Ein chiluk malachas b'Yom Tif? Is there no chiluk to divide on Yom Tif that you'd be chayiv twice for 2 malachas on 1 Yom Tif? But v'hatanan, or v'hatanya, we learned in Abraisa, hamevashal gid, and the bachad's gid hanoshe, one that's cooking gid hanoshe. B'cholav, with milk, and it's b'Yom Tif. V'oichloi, and it's on Yom Tif, and then he ate it, loike chamish. So in this case, there are 5 times that this person is chayav malkus. What are the 5 malkusim? Loike mishum oichel gid. He's eating the gid hanoshe. That's 1 time. V'loike mishum mevashal b'Yom Tif. And then he's cooking on Yom Tif. Shalei l'tzayrich. On Yom Tif, you're allowed to cook oichel nefesh for the purpose of eating, but if is cooking gid hanoshe, which you're not allowed to eat. So it's shalei l'tzayrich. And then he's cooking this gid hanoshe together with milk, the isser of basa v'chalav, and the malchus for it is for cooking as well. And then he also gets malchus for eating the basa v'chalav, and mishum hav'are, and he also gets malchus for lighting the fire to cook on Yom Tif. So what do we see here? That for the isser of Yom Tif itself, it says in this brayse that he's getting twice malchus for 2 malachas that he did on Yom Tif, the cooking on Yom Tif and lighting the fire on Yom Tif. But if what we said before is true, that when you do 2 malachas on 1 Yom Tif, so then you only chayiv 1 malchus, So mishum avara loy mechayev or loy lechayev. For lighting the fire, he should not be chayev because you can't be chayev twice for the cooking and for lighting the fire. The ha'ichayev le mishum bishulay. He's chayev already for the cooking on Yontif. So the Gemara answers, you're right. Apik avara. The 5 that it says here in this brayso that Yechayev, the 5th is not the havara that he made the fire. So take that out. And va'ayil, and instead add to the brayso that the case here is gid hanosha shel nevela. Not only was it gid hanosha, but it was a gid hanosha of an animal that was not shechted properly, and therefore there's a malchus for eating nevela. That's the 5th malchus. Fragt the Gemara, but that can't be pshat in the brayse, because V'atani Rab Chiya explained this brayse that when it says you're getting 5 times malchus, leike shtayim al achilasai, twice malchus is for eating, and v'shalosh al bishulai, and 3 times malchus for the cooking. But v'im ise, if what we just said here is true, that it's gidanosha, it's basa b'cholav, and it's a nevela, wasn't shechted, then shalosh al achilasai chayev. So then it's really 3 that he's chayev malchus for the eating, and it's only 2 for the cooking, because he's chayev for cooking on Yontif and he's chayev for cooking basa b'cholav. But so you can't say the pshat here is that it's nevela. So the Gemara says another option. Ella, rather the pshat on this brayso, why is he chayev 5 times malchus without having 2 for Yontif? Apik havara, take out havara, and va'ayil atzei asherah. The wood that he used to cook was wood from an asherah tree, from Avodah Zarah. And you're not allowed to have any anah from the asherah tree. Vazarasei, what's the warning for this? Me'acha, the pasuk says, V'layidbag b'yodcha mu'uma min ha'cherem, which is a pasuk that says by iranidachas, and cherem refers to Avodah Zarah. You're not allowed to have anah from Avodah Zarah. So Rav Acha B'rei Rava asks, if that's the case, v'lul kinami, if he's having anah from the Avodah Zarah, then there should be another malchus. Mishum loisavi to'eva el beisecha. You're not allowed to bring something of Avodah Zarah that's abominable into your house. So the fact that he's bringing it in and he's using it, there's a 6th malchus for this. So that can't be the case of the brayse. Ella says the Gemara, what is the 5th malchus here? That he's using wood from hektish and he's cooking with it. And the warning for this is, because it says in the pasuk, that the asherah tree, Avodah Zarah, you should burn it, get rid of it, burn it in fire, and then the pasuk says, Lo sason kain l'Hashem l'keichem. Don't do this for the Eibishter, which means for something that's from hektish. So when you take wood from hektish and you are using it for firewood to cook with it, you chayiv another malchus for burning hektish. Those are the 5 malchus in the brayse, but there's no 2 for Yontif. Taisvis here actually asks, you should be chayiv a 6th malchus because of me'ilah. Besides this pasuk that it says specifically regarding wood, l'sas and kain l'Hashem l'keichem, but why aren't you chayiv for me'ilah? Taisvis actually says that there's really a 6th malchus here for me'ilah, but by me'ilah it has to be a shava pruta, that you use there's some value of a shava pruta. Here the brayse is giving an example that you would be chayiv 5 times malchus, including the using of the wood of the asherah, and that lav of l'sas and kain is even if it's not a shava pruta. Okay, now going back to the case of the Mishnah, right? The Mishnah said the case of one person that is plowing 1 row in the field and he's chayiv 8 times malchus. So here the Gemara brings a bunch of different Amirayim that ask questions that there should be additional examples that could be added to it, that you could be chayiv more malchus. It looks like the Mishnah wants to give you an example. It looks like the maximum of malchus you would be chayiv with 1 act. There could be additional things to be added here. Simin, Shanboi, Shanaz. This is the names of the Amirayim here. Rav Haishi asks, you could also add to this that the place where he's plowing is also a Nachal Eson. The Nachal Eson is the place where the mitzvah of the Egla Arufa is done. When a person is found dead and you have to bring the Egla Arufa and chop off its head, and there, that place, the pasuk says, you're not allowed to work there, you're not allowed to plow that area. The person says, you should not work there, you should not plant this place. So that's another malchus to add. Why would the Mishnah also add that it could be also a case where there was a name of the Eibishter that was written, and as he's plowing, he's also erasing the Eibishter's name as he's going. The pasuk says, you should destroy the name of Avodah Zarah, and this is the law of erasing Hashem's name. Bavo asked, "V'lachshev nami hakaitzitz es bahartai." You could also say that while he's doing the act of the plowing, he has a beheres, which is a nega. This week's parsha, a person has the nega, and there's a lav, not to cut off a nega tzaras that a person has. As the Gemara here brings, v'azarase mehocha, hishomer benega tzaras. You have to be careful with the nega tzaras not to cut it off. This is actually not in this week's parsha. I think it's in parshas Kiseitze. So while he's plowing, his body is maybe rubbing against what he's holding on to, or the plow is going to cut off the nega tzaras. So there's another malchus, he would be chayiv in the same act. Maskefla Abaya asks, "V'lachshev nami." We should also count another case if the Kohen Gadol happens to be there and he's walking by. Hameziach hachayshen me'ala ephod. The chayshen was moved from its place where it's supposed to be on the ephod, or if the aron in the Beis Hamikdash was taken out and it was there in that place where the person is plowing. V'hameiser bade aron. And while with the plow, it removes the poles that are inside the aron, it moves it out of its place. So there's another two lav in here for this. And vazarase mehacha, the azara is in the pasuk where it says lo yesuru, not to remove the badim from the aron, and v'leizach hachayshen, and the chayshen should not move from its place on the ephod. Another question, maskef lot of ashi v'lachshev nami hachayrish ba'atzei asheira. Person that's plowing with wood that is from a asheira tree. Vazarase mehacha v'liyidba b'yotcha me'uma v'goyim, as we quoted before this pasuk. Another lav, maskefla ravine, v'lachshev nami, hakaitzetz ilonis teves. This person is plowing, and he cuts off fruit trees. You're not allowed to cut off the trees that, stam trees you can cut, but fruit trees you're not allowed to cut. You should not cut off fruit trees. I think this is the final question the Gemara asks. Rab Zeira asks Rab Mani, "V'lachshev nami." You could also add another malchus. Kogoin da Omar shvue shaloi achreish b'yomtiv. If a person made a shvue that he will not be chayrish on yomtiv, so when he's being chayrish, when he's plowing on yomtiv, he's being over on a shvue that he made. And says the Gemara, Hasam, if that's the case, the person makes such a kind of a shvue, loika chal shvue. This shvua does not take effect, because mushpa ba'oimet mahar sinaihu. Since every year this already has a shvua, that the Eibishter had every year take an oath that we will fulfill what it says in the Torah. So in such a case, the shvua that he says that he's not gonna plow on yontiv doesn't take effect, because it's not a shvua. Second. Yeah, the person is making a shvua that he's not going to be mevatel a mitzvah, doesn't take effect since there's already a shvua from Har Sinai. So this he's not allowed to do this avera anyways from Har Sinai. So this shvua that he makes does not take effect at all. Amalei. So now but Rab Zira asked back and said, but kogoin the Omar, in a case where the person says shvua shalei echresh bein b'chol and bein b'yomtiv, he's not making the shvua just not to do any charisha on Yontif. His shvua is not to plow at all, not on a regular day, on a weekday, or not on a Yontif. So over here, such a shvua could take effect. You're going to say that regarding Yontif, the shvua doesn't take effect? No, it does, because the migu, the chala alei shvua b'chayil, chala alei nami b'yontif. If the shvua takes effect regarding a weekday, it takes effect regarding the Yontif. Right, so this is, as Rivan here explains, Ba'arichas Gedayla, that usually there's a klal of ein iser chal al iser. If there's already something that's forbidden, you can't add a second isser to it, because it's already, once it's asr, you can't add another isser. But if it's a case where this is what's called isser kailal, you're adding a second isser that includes more than the first isser. So in this case, the first isser is not to plow on yontif. But now you're making a shvua that's adding not only yontif, but because of my shvua, I can't plow on weekday either. So in such a case where you kailal more days or another additional detail, the additional shvua would take effect. There's also another concept that Rivan brings, which is called Isser Maisiv. Okay, but that's not the Geir Mamsh, the Pshat of the Gemara. Okay, so the Gemara says, Midi the Ise b'she'ela loikatani. The Tana and the Mishnah does not mention a lav which is based on a Isser that could be removed. Any shvua that a person makes, like a neder, you could be shoyel, you could be matter, be made for the neder by asking a chacham to be matter the neder for you. So therefore, this is an example the Tana doesn't mention. The Tana is not mentioning something that you can be shoyel on this neder. V'harei hektish. the Mishnah says that the case is that the shayr and chamayr that he was plying with was mukdashin. What's mukdashin? The person was makdish it for hektish. That's something that a person can be shayl on the neder, that it should not be hektish anymore. And says the Gemara, no, it's actually not talking about something the person was makdish b'bchayr. It's talking about a b'chayr, which is born hektish. In fact, the Gemara about Vaharei Nazir, the last case of the Malkus of the Mishnah that it mentions here is that this person is a Nazir and he's in a base of Kvaris and he's over on a lav. A Nazir is something that a person accepts with his neder, and you could be shayl on this Naziris. That's the Gemara ben Nazir Shimshon. We're talking about over here the Naziris of Shimshon. The Naziris of Shimshon is not a Naziris that he accepted upon himself. It's a Naziris that is through the Malach that told his parents that the child will be born and will be a Nazir. So there's no shayla on this. It comes from Lamaila. In fact, the Gemara Nazir Shimshon bar etmuye lemeisamu. By the Naziris of Shimshon, is he also to become Tomei to Meisim? The Naziris of Shimshon, the Gemara in Nazir says Barichis that it's unusual. The regular Naziris, a person is also to drink wine, to cut his hair, and to be Metama to Meisim. Not by the Naziris of Shimshon. Over there, the Malach said that he's allowed to be Metama to Meisim. Shimshon was the one that was fighting for Yidden and killed many, the Plishtim. When he was fighting for Yidden, he didn't have that Isser B'chlal. Okay. Ella, says the Gemara, Hi Taner. The Gemara gives a different answer. You're right, that Be'emes, you can't say the answer is that Isa B'Sheila, because over here this is a case where there is Isa B'Sheila and the Tana is mentioning the Ziris. So rather going back to the point, why did not say this lav of him making a shvuah that he won't plow on a weekday and on Yontif? Hi Tana Isra Kailo Leslie. He doesn't hold this concept of Isra Kailo. As I explained before, there's a rule of Ein Isra Chalal Isra. One Isra does not take effect if it's already Asr. But then there's the exception. If it's kailul more than the original Isser, it would take effect. But the Tana of this Mishnah holds, no, the rule of Ein Isser Chalal Isser always applies. Even if the additional shvu that you'll make now will be kailul more days, it still will not take effect since this plowing is already Asr, Mushba v'Oimid Marsina, that you're not allowed to plow on Yom Tov. The Gemara finishes off here with another interesting halacha, where a person does one act and he's chayiv malchus more than once. Hamarbiya shoyer psulei hamukdashin. If someone takes an ox that's from psulei hamukdashin. Now psulei hamukdashin is a shoyer that was hektish, but it got a mum. So once it gets a mum, you can't bring it as a carbon. What happens with this? So you could redeem it. Once you redeem it, it becomes chulin. But the thing now here is, when you redeem hektish that got a mum and it becomes chulin, it doesn't become complete chulin. It's sort of a partial chulin. What is it chulin for? You could shecht it and eat it, but you're not allowed to do any work with it. Rashi here brings the source for this. The Lashon the pasuk says, "B'chol avos nafshcha tizbach v'achalta basar," and that's a pasuk that's referring specifically to psulei hamukdashin. That because it once was hektish, even after you redeem it, it still retains some level of a status of hektish that you're not allowed to do any work with it. Okay, so therefore over here, this person that takes this shayr of psulei hamukdashin, and he's marbiya. Marbiya means he cohabits it with its own species, with a pada, with a cow. So he's going to be like a shnaim, he gets twice malchus for this. Why twice malchus? One time he gets malchus because he's making it work. The fact that he wants it to cohabit and it should have babies, to give him more cows, that's making it work. You're not allowed to make it work. The only thing that you can use it for is to eat. That's one malchus. Another malchus here is, and this is very interesting, he's chayiv malchus for kilayim, for the harbah of the kilayim. What's the kilayim over here? It's cohabiting with its own min. So the Rivan explains that the pshat here is because this is an animal that is partially hektish and partially chulin. Kilayim is not only when there's a cohabitation of two different species in animals. Over here, since this animal is kaidesh, it's hektish, it's partially hektish, and now it's cohabiting with another animal which is chulin, between two animals, one is hektish and one is chulin, that's also called kilayim. Two different minim in the status of what it is. One being true, but half of it is hektish though, because half of it is hektish, and it's is marbiya with another animal which is chulin. That itself is an isser of kalayim, and therefore is chayiv a second malchus. Now, in connection to this, it says another case which is an even bigger chiddush. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak. So Rabbi Yitzchak said, "Hamanig b'shar psulei hamikdashin." If a person is using an animal which is this psulei hamikdashin, which is half hektish and half chulin, half of it is chulin because you can eat it. yourself. But half of it is still hektish, meaning in the sense that you're not allowed to work with it, so it has still a hektish status. So this is one animal, which is partially hektish and partially chulin, and now he's using this one animal to put his package on it and he's manig, and this animal is carrying a package for him. Loike, he gets malchus even if it's just one animal. Sharei guf echadu, even though it's one animal, but v'asay hakosov kishnei gufin. The Torah considers it to be like one animal that has two different statuses, two different categories of an animal. It's chulin and hektish at the same time. So when you're using this one animal, it's like you're using a kalayim to do this work for you. Just like when you're not allowed to use a donkey and a cow together to plow in the field. You're not allowed to use this one animal that is like two different minim within this same animal to carry something for you. The Rashbam, the Rivan, says on this concept that this is called kalayim v'dovet teimuhu. He says I didn't hear a raya from where's the source for such a concept that chulin and kotchim is b'chlal considered to be kalayim. It's physically it's the same min. It's just a different status of pitayra, chulin and kotchim. And here even more, we're saying regarding the very same animal that because it has half chulin, half hektish, and the halacha of how you treat it, it's like an inyan of kalayim when you use it itself. That's what the Rashbam says. Dvar Teimuhu. Taisus here brings that because regarding the Psula and Mikdashim, it says that you redeem it and it becomes Kitzvi v'cha'ayol. That's the expression of the Torah. So it's meram is that this one animal is like two different minim, like a tzvi and a ayol, and therefore it's going to be kalayim. So now here the Mishnah and the next Mishnayos will be discussing the Malchus itself. Till here we were discussing for what is a person chayav Malchus, but now the Mishnah discusses what is the actual Malchus itself. Kama Malka Noisei, how many Malchus does a person get? Arboim chaser achas, 40 minus 1. Shanam, the pasuk says, b'mispar arboim, so that means minyan shu samuch l'arboim. You give him the number that's right before 40. Rabbi Yudah says, arboim shleima sulaike, that the person gets Malchus 40. Where is Esayiseda? That extra Malchus that the person gets, that 40th, where is this Malchus? Regarding the other Malchusin, there's a Mishnah afterwards, we'll see, that says where the Malchus is. But this 40th Malchus, where does the person get this? Bank Seifov. It's between his shoulders, on the top of the back, between the shoulders. Now, regarding the Malchus, even though you have to get 39, but you have to evaluate what Malchus the person could handle. You shouldn't die from this Malchus. So now, when he's evaluated, it has to be evaluated by Malchus that could be divided into three. Because as the Mishnah will say afterwards, and the Gemara will explain that the Malchus is given shlish milafonov and shnei shlishim milachirov. We'll see that it has to be divided into three. And therefore, Amdul Lekabel Arbaim, if he was estimated that he can get Malchus 40, Veloike Miktsas, in a case where the person was evaluated that he can get the full Malchus, and Veloike Miktsas, and he got Malchus, part of that 40. V'amdu, and then it was evaluated again, She'en Yachal Lekabel Arbaim. He can't handle getting all of the 40. So, but once he already got part of the Malchus, after they evaluated that he can get the full Malchus, Potter. He's going to be Potter. So the way the Rivan explains here, the Mishnah, when it says this case, he was evaluated that he can get 40 Malchus, and then they evaluated again, and they saw that he can't get any Malchus at all. He can't handle getting any Malchus. But he already got some of it. And so now they evaluated that he can't get any Malchus, he's going to be Potter. Let's say he was evaluated to get 18, right? So it's saying this case of 18 because that's an example of Malchus that could be divided into three. And then and then after he got the Malchus of 18, now they evaluated that he can get more, his body can handle to get all 40 Malchus or 39 Potter. But once he got the Malchus of 18, he's going to be Potter. So in both of these cases of the Mishnah, what you see here is that when there was one evaluation and then there was a second evaluation, if he already got Malchus or some of the Malchus, that it was the first evaluation, then he's potter to get anything additional. So the Gemara, my timer.
How many times is he evaluated?
Usually only once, but they, for whatever reason they evaluated him a second time. They saw that the first evaluation they didn't think it was right. They evaluated again. Okay, so the Gemara now explains the first halacha of the Mishnah that the Malchus is not 40, it's 39. My time, what's the source for this? In the pasuk, it actually says Arbaim. That's the number. So why is it not 40? So the Gemara explains because Iksiv Arbaim b'mispar. If it would say the lashon of the pasuk would be 40, that's the number. Havamin Arbaim b'minyana, that you have to count to 40. But now actually in the pasuk, it's two psukim actually. In one pasuk it says mispar. One second, let me see over here. Let me bring over here the pasuk. The pasuk says v'pila shofet v'kol lefanav kedei d'shasei b'mispar. That's the end of one pasuk, and then the next pasuk it says arba'im yakenu le'yosef. So the word b'mispar it says in the end of the first pasuk, and then in the next pasuk it says arba'im. So now that it says bim mispar and then it says arba'im, what that means is minyan. That number shu soichem is arba'im. That is that last number that leads you, that brings you to 40, which is 39. Amar Rava. So based on this drasha, where you see that Chazal darshan the Torah this way, so Rava said, "Kama tipshoi shar inchi." How foolish are people? The kaimi mekame sefer Torah. They get up for a sefer Torah. V'lekaimi mekame gavra rabba. But they don't get up for a Talmud Chacham, for a great person that's learning Torah. The Elu b'Sefer Torah ksiv arba'im. In the Sefer Torah it says 40. V'asar Rabbanan and Batzar Chada. And the Chachamim come and they have the koyach to be mechadish and darshan in the Torah that it doesn't mean 40, it means 39. So we see that the power of the Talmid Chacham is greater than the Torah itself. So definitely one should get up and give the proper honor for a Talmud Chacham. So the Mefarshim here ask that here the Gemara is saying that the kavod of a Talmud Chacham is greater than the kavod of Torah itself. But there's a Gemara in Brachas that says the exact opposite. That if you stand up for a Talmud Chacham, how much more so Kal V'chaim you should stand up for the Torah itself. So what's the pshat? So there's truths in the Mefarshim. The Rebbe once spoke about this Gemara and if I bring in Yud Beis Tamas Tavshin Yotes, and the Rebbe said it depends what level of a Talmud Chacham. There's the famous Gemara that says regarding a Talmud Chacham that a person learns Torah, and then when you learn and you're Machadish in Torah, then Terase Dilehi becomes his Torah. The Torah is called in his name because he's Machadish in Torah. When you talk about a Talmud Chacham that's doesn't have the koyach to be Machadish in Torah, so then the power of the kavod of the Torah is more than the Talmud Chacham. That's the Gemara in Brachas. Here we're talking about, as the Gemara is saying, a Talmud Chacham that's on a higher level, that he could learn in Torah to the extent that it could be Machadish in Torah, even here where you're changing the simple pshat of the pasuk that it says 40. Here the Gemara is saying that this Talmud Chacham is on a higher level than the Torah itself. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Arba'im Shleimus v'chulu, that it's 40 Malchus. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, my time with the Rabbi Yehuda. Where is Rabbi Yehuda's source that there's the Malchus that you give that are divided into thirds, and as the Mishnah will later say, but here there's a 40th Malchus. Where do you see this? So Rabbi Yitzchak said, there's a pasuk that says, that Ma Makos ben Yadecha, he didn't ask a Novi, this is talking about a Novi Sheker, and they're asking him, what are these Malchus that I see between your hands? Between your hands over here means between your shoulders. That there's the Malchus on the top of the back, between the shoulders. I see that you got Malchus there. What is this? V'Amar, and the Novi Sheker says, Asher hu Kesi beis ma'avoy. I got this Malchus in the house that I love. What is the house that he loves? The Beis Din that loves a Yid, and they give him this Malchus. It's actually all out of love. So here you see that Ben Yadecha, this is not the regular place where the whole Malchus is given, but there's an additional Malchus, and this is the 40th Malchus. In this pasuk you see that you have to learn the pasuk Arba'im and the Torah Kipshutei, because there is a 40th Malchus that you hit and give between the shoulders on the top of the back. Rabbanan, however, the Rabbanan say that pasuk is not a source. That pasuk is actually talking about the father that gave the child, he hit the child when he was younger in order for him to learn Torah. It's not talking about the Beis Din. Beis Mava is the father that loved him and gave him this petch. Okay, going back to the Mishnah, it said that you estimate the Malchus that this person is able to handle. And what did the Mishnah say? That when you evaluate the Malchus, so you always will evaluate to see what it is that he could get, but then if the evaluation was incorrect, because later they evaluated different, then the first case of the Mishnah was if he was evaluated for 40, and now they evaluate that he can't get Malchus anymore, so he's potter. And also if they evaluated it for 18, and then now they evaluate, you can get more, but he's still potter. But the Gemara is medayek. What did it say the Mishnah though? Loka in, if you already got Malchus, then I say that he'll be potter. The second evaluation, it won't change anything. He'll be potter. But loy loka, if he did not get any Malchus yet, then that's not the case. Then it sounds like he wouldn't be potter. But Aminu, ask you from what it says in the Braise. The Braise speaks about the exact same two cases of our Mishnah, but it doesn't make any mention of the fact that he already got Malchus. Amdu lekabel arboim. The first evaluation was that he can get 40 Malchus, the full Malchus, and then v'chazru v'amdu. Then they evaluated shein yachal lekabel arboim, that he can't handle Malchus. Potter. He'll be potter. Whether he already got part of the malchus or not doesn't make a difference. He's potter. You go by the second evaluation. Amdu l'kabel shmei nesrei, he was evaluated that he can get 18 malchus, and then later v'chazru v'amdu sheyachol l'kabel arbaim, that he could handle all 40 malchus, potter. He's going to be potter from getting the 40 malchus, and it doesn't make a difference if he already got part of the malchus or not. So this is a stira to our Mishnah that said that only if he already got the malchus or part of the malchus, then I say that'll be potter. Rav Sheshes explains, Lo kasha, it's not a contradiction. Ha da amdu liyoimi. In our Mishnah, it's talking about where the person was evaluated to get malchus, and then on the very same day, they evaluated him again. So in such a case where the person was evaluated once, and then an hour or two later, he was evaluated a second time, and now it turns out that he could get more, or he could only get less, what does that mean? If on the same day something changed here in the evaluation, the assumption here is that the first evaluation was incorrect, because they see now that he can get malchus, more or less. And the same day, the person's condition of the body doesn't change. So that means that the malchus that he got the first time, the evaluation that he got the first time was incorrect. So therefore, in the case where they evaluated him that he could get 40 malchus, in such a case, the evaluation was incorrect, and therefore if he did not get any malchus yet, you're going to have to go by the second evaluation and give him the new malchus. You can't say that he's potter. If he already got part of the malchus, so then, as the Rivan explains here, the halacha is v'nikla chichelei necha. He already got embarrassed to some extent. He already got some of the malchus. Then he'll be potter. But if not, then he's not going to be potter. And the same thing also regarding the next case that the Mishnah said that he was evaluated that he can get 18, and then afterwards they evaluated him that he can get 40. He's going to have to get the 40 now, because now you see that the first evaluation was wrong, so he's going to have to get 40. But if you got it ready, some of the malchus, only then do you say that he's going to be potter. That's regarding our Mishnah. But in the Braisa, it's talking about where the person was evaluated today, and then the next day, or maybe even a week later, he was evaluated for a different evaluation. So in such a case, the first evaluation was correct, but now the second evaluation is also correct, because the matzav of his body changed. So in such a case, we go by the first evaluation, because the first evaluation was a correct evaluation, and therefore, in a case where the person l'chatchila could only get 18, so that first evaluation was correct. So we stay with the first evaluation. In a case where the person l'chatchila could get 18 and now he can get 40, so we stick to that first evaluation. And in a case where the person l'chatchila can get 40 and now he could only get 18, we can't give him more than 18, because now is his body changed. We see that it's a day later or it's a week later, his body changed. You could only give him the 18 now. So over here, it doesn't make a difference if you already got the malchus or not, because over here, we know that his body taka changed. If a person did an aveda that has two lavim to it, one of the examples we had before, and he was evaluated one time to get all the malchus together, and he was being evaluated, could he get both malchus together at once? And so he gets the malchus for both of these together, upater, and then it'll be pater. So let's say they evaluated that he can get part of both of these malchus. Let's say he can only get 50 malchus. So he's getting one malchus plus a little more. So once they evaluated both together, it'll be pater. But vimla, if they did not evaluate both together, he was first evaluated for one malchus. And then let's say the edus that came and testified about the aveda that he did, they've only testified about one aveda that was in this action, and he was evaluated for one malchus, and he's going to get malchus for that. So then I say loike, he gets malchus for that, and now he's going to have to be evaluated again when the second aveda is brought to the bezanu misraped. You have to wait until he heals of a chayz of a loike, and he gets a second malchus for the second aveda. Fragt the Gemara, but we learned in the Braise, ein oimid echad l'shnei lavin. When a person is over two lavin, you don't make one evaluation for both of the malchusin together. So how's our Mishnah saying that this person is evaluated for both together and then it'll be potter? Rav Sheshes says, lo kasha, it's not a contradiction. And this is based on what we learned before, that when you evaluate, it has to be divided into threes. Ha'adamdu la'arbaim v'chada. In a case where the person was evaluated that he can get 41 malchus. So if he's getting that evaluation that he could only get 41, that can't be divided into 41. What could be divided into 3? You have to go down to the number lower that he could get, which would be 39. So then that would be only one malchus. So in such a case, he's not evaluated for more than 1, because if you want to go more than 1, he can't handle more than 41. So then that extra 2, 40 and 41, it's not divided into 3. In such a case is where we say that you go to 39. What?
41.
Because if they were trying to evaluate him for both Makos and together, and they see that the maximum that he can get is 41, so because 41 is only 2 more than the 1 Makos, which is 39, that 2 we eliminate, because 2 is not divided into 3 Makos, so you have to go back down to the number 39. So it's in such a case that he gets 39. Okay, so when it said in the Mishnah that they evaluated for both together, it means that they evaluated that you let's say 42, or anything more, where it could be divided into 3s. Then you could evaluate both together. And then when the Mishnah said v'im lav means such a kind of case where they evaluated both together, but it didn't go together because it was like the Gemara saying it was only 41, and therefore you have to go back down to 39, and then he's going to get 39 malchus, and then that's going to wait until he's misrapet, till he heals, and then they give him another malchus. That's what our Mishnah is saying. And ha'adam dul arba'an v'tarti. But if he gets the malchus of, if they evaluated him that he gets 42, so then that's what our Mishnah L'chatchila said, that he's evaluated to get 42. So then once he gets 42, so then now he's potter from the second malchus, because he got 3 for the second malchus, and then it includes both. That's the answer to the Stira de Brais of the Mishnah.